The first thing I saw was the fire turning blue. That was the moment I knew something was wrong. Normal fire does not burn like that. And on that night, nobody standing around me was brave enough to speak. My name is Ogenimu. I was 18 years old when I witnessed the ritual that changed the entire Ughelli Kingdom. What I saw that night has lived with me ever since. Even now, when I close my eyes, I still see the blue flame rising from the ground, like it had a mind of its own. To understand what happened, you need to know what our kingdom was facing at that time. For months, our people were suffering. Strange sickness moved from house to house. People would wake up weak, unable to stand. Some even said they heard heavy footsteps outside their windows at night, even when no one was there. Farmers complained that their crops were dying too early, even when rain was falling. Palm trees stopped producing. The cattle in Urhobo village became thin for no clear reason. The chiefs were arguing every day, and the king, our king, looked more worried with each passing week. Some old men said the land was angry. Some women whispered that someone somewhere had broken a sacred rule, but nobody knew what rule it was. One evening, my uncle Ogenero came to our house. He said the king had called for a secret cleansing ritual, one that only a few chosen men could witness. My uncle was one of them, and for a reason I didn't understand at the time, he told me to follow him. We left the village quietly, walking down the small footpath behind Oto Ayede Road. The forest there is thick, very quiet at night. I remember hearing only our footsteps and the distant sound of frogs. When we arrived, I saw the elders standing in a small circle. At the center of the circle stood the king, dressed in his white robe. His face looked tired. His eyes looked heavy, like he had not slept in days. The chief priest, a tall man with grey hair, stepped forward carrying a small wooden box wrapped in red cloth. Everybody bowed the moment they saw it. I didn't know what was inside the box. All I knew was that the air around it felt different, almost like it was heavier. The priest placed the box on the ground, opened it and showed the items inside. I only saw beads, a small stone and dried leaves, but the elders looked frightened. Some even stepped back. The ritual began. The priest placed the stone on the ground. He told the king to kneel. Then he asked all of us to remain silent, no matter what we saw or heard. He lit a small fire. At first it burned orange, normal fire. Then he began to chant in Old Urhobo. Even though I didn't understand the words, something about the chant made my skin rise. The wind changed. The animals in the forest went silent. Even the night suddenly felt colder. Then the fire turned blue. I remember holding my breath. I remember feeling like the ground under my feet was moving. The elders looked scared, but none of them ran. They just watched. The priest told the king to place his hands above the blue flame. The king obeyed. His hands hovered over it and the flame rose higher, almost touching his palm. I expected him to scream, but he didn't. He kept his eyes closed and his face remained still, too still. Then the priest said something that made every man there look up. He said, "Now speak your truth. Speak what you have hidden. Speak what the land has heard." The king opened his eyes slowly. He started talking. I could not hear everything he said because the chant from the priest grew louder, but I caught a few words that made the elders shift uncomfortably. I heard him admit something he had done years before, something connected to the throne, something connected to a promise he had broken. Whatever it was, the land had been waiting for him to confess it. The moment he finished speaking, the flame went out instantly, just like that. No smoke, no smell, nothing. The fire died like someone blew it out from the sky. The priest closed the wooden box, tied the red cloth around it and handed it to the king. Then he said, "The land has heard you. The curse is removed. But this truth must never leave this forest." After that, nobody spoke. We all walked back to the village quietly. The next morning, something changed. The strange sickness stopped. People began to walk around with energy again. Farmers said their crops suddenly came back to life. Even the cattle started gaining weight again. The chief stopped fighting. For the first time in months, the people were smiling. It was like the land had taken a deep breath and released its anger. But nobody talked about the ritual. Nobody asked why the fire turned blue. Nobody asked what the king confessed. Even my uncle never answered my questions. He only said, "Some things are better left in the forest." Now, many years have passed. New leaders sit on the throne. People don't talk about that dark period anymore. But I still remember the blue flame. I still remember the king's face when he confessed. And I still wonder what truth he spoke. The truth that changed the entire Ughelli Kingdom forever. Because whatever it was powerful enough to wake the land and quiet it again.